A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please rise for the PIM anthem.
විදුරුවන් කිරණ නොමින් පෙරාගෙන දිනුව සලසන නව්‍ය තාක්ෂණ විදුරුවන් කිරණ නොමින් පෙරාගෙන මානව සමගුණ විසිලස යොදවන අලමනා කරන විදුනෙන බඩවල විවරමින් මනගුණ රන්දන ජය මඟ පාලන නියමුදිකේතන සවිවරමින් මනගුණ රන්දන ජය මඟ පාලන නියමුදිකේතන සිරිලක සිරිසර මල්පල ගන්වන විදුබිම නන්දන කරනෙමු වන්දන ජයවර්ධනපුර විදුදය සරසවි ආත්මකතාවේ විකසිත පියුම ඔබයි බිම්බර අප විද්‍යා භූමි විදුගොස දස දෙස වීරා මොරදේ වාදය ගත වන්නා බිම්බර අප විද්‍යා භූමි.
Please take your seats. Ayubowan, and welcome once again to the Industry Dialogue of the PIM Annual Research Conference 2021. I'm Thandu Amrasekara, Senior Lecturer at the Postgraduate Institute of Management and your host for this evening. And this warm welcome goes out to all of those who are present here today, our panelists, our presenters, members of the staff of PIM, and also for all of those who are joining us online, both in Sri Lanka and also from all corners of the world. It is great to see the conditions enabled by the new normal enabling us to go and connect with the entire global research community this evening. The pandemic indeed created new business conditions. It completely turned around all the business factors and the knowledge as we knew it. For example, business decision makers were pushed to make many assumptions, but it's only through proper research and awareness about the reality that any business, any country, any economy will be able to go in the right trajectory. For example, ladies and gentlemen, it is not uncommon for business leaders to think that the pandemic is worse than the global financial crisis in 2008. However, research shows that while the global financial crisis set back the global economy by almost 10%, the current situation, the pandemic-infused economic conditions, has only set back the global economy by about 3%. Take a look at the supply chain chock-a-block we experience today. It is very much clear that many business decision makers rush to cut down supplies. As a result, we are experiencing a supply chain traffic jam, as one would call it, in ports around the world. Hence, ladies and gentlemen, all these examples show how important research is for business decision making. And PIM, being the nation's management mentor, takes it upon themselves to pioneer in creating this new knowledge, and not just create new knowledge, not just do research for the sake of research, but carry out research which is useful for the business community and share it with the business community both in Sri Lanka and the world. Hence, the journey for this year, which we embarked upon yesterday, comes into a conclusion with today's industry dialogue, where we will be having presenters who have taken immense time and looked into new areas of business, new dimensions of the common businesses and the uncommon business fields that we may know, and see how it can be applied into practice, along with the input and insight from experts whom we have here with us today as the panel, whom I will be introducing shortly. And to continue with today's proceedings, it is now my great pleasure to introduce a very special individual, someone with whose leadership and guidance and support we have been able to make this event a success. He is the director of the Postgraduate Institute of Management. Dr. Senaka Kalum Gamage is armed with over 2 decades of experience in the university level education. Dr. Gamage has also served as the director of the World Bank funded higher education projects of the University of Sri Jayawardenapura. A veteran in the field of knowledge creation, he is acknowledged in the industry for his significant contribution to academia and value-based leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Senaka Kalum Gamage, Director of PIM.
Thank you, Tarindu. Very pleasant evening to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, who are joining with us today physically as well as virtually. Today is the last session of our annual research conference, PIMARC 2021. I believe that this industry dialogue, which we are going to have today, aims to translate the knowledge produced by the academic researchers relevant to the given to the relevant practitioners to get their expert comments on those research work. Especially apply this work knowledge what they created to the academy, to the industry. So I think today the need is for more applied research, which can be readily applicable to the industry. So that is what we are going to evidence today. Most probably our panel members will give their comments, industrial comments related to the research conducted by our researchers, and they will be able to commercialize those research in the later stage. So ladies and gentlemen, it gives me immense pleasure as a director of this prestigious Postgraduate Institute of Management to welcome all of you to the important industrial dialogue. Firstmost, the great honor to let me welcome our important industrial panel members and the moderator of this session, Mrs. Farsan Jamil, President Councillor, and also the visiting lecturer of the Faculty Postgraduate Institute of Management, Dr. Samantha Pereira, Director, CEO, Ceylon Biscuits Limited Food International, Mr. Malraj Kiriel, Founder, South Asian Multidisciplinary Advisory Services, and also Mr. Asangarana Singh, Senior Consultant of the Postgraduate Institute of Management. Dear panel members, thank you very much for taking your valuable time to join with us physically today to give this, your expert comments to our researchers who are going to make their presentation relevant to their research work. I am sure they will be benefited getting the comments and opinions from all of you, whereby they will be able to commercialize their product at the end of the day. I also would like to welcome our moderator, Professor Ajanta Dharmasiri, former director of the Postgraduate Institute of Management, for this session. Welcome, Professor, to the session. Next, I would like to welcome our paper presenters. This time, we have selected 3 papers that bring more practical insight for the dialogue. Ms. Vindhya Gunasekara, Professional Lecturer from the University of Kelaniya, Ms. Sashini Shanika, probationary lecturer from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, and Ms. Hasini Vikramasinghe, probationary lecturer from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. Welcome all of you to this important session. I hope you will be able to get valuable comments from our expert panel for further work of your research activities. Furthermore, I would like to welcome our PIM faculty members, all the invitees from the PIM alumni, PIM student base, and other industry experts and others who are joining through the Zoom and also Facebook. Today, we will witness three university academics presenting their findings to the expert industrial panel members to get their valuable insights. We have selected practitioners who will sound academic knowledge and discuss how can we apply such knowledge into the practice to get the organizational or professional development in the country. We believe that the creation new knowledge, which can be used to a real world practice, is responsibility of the responsible higher education institute, such as the Postgraduate Institute of Management. So we are different and move beyond the just producing postgraduate degree holders. We create postgraduates who can apply the new knowledge generated through their research to the actual world of practice. I'm sure this evening will add immense value to the presenters as well as the audience without any hesitation. Finally, again, let me warmly welcome all of you, ladies and gentlemen, to this very important final session of our annual research conference, PIMARC 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Senaka Kalungamage, Director of the Postgraduate Institute of Management. And as he very correctly reiterated, ladies and gentlemen, the intention is not just to create postgraduate students, but postgraduate students with the ability to create credible knowledge that can be utilized in the corporate world to make the right decisions. Next, to introduce the industry dialogue, its purpose, and the key motive behind it, let me please welcome the co-chair of this event, who is none other than Dr. Nilakshi Galahitiyava. Dr. Nilakshi Galahitiyava is attached to the Department of Decision Sciences at the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce of the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. She obtained her Master of Science in Management from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura and her PhD from the University of Malaya. And her area of teaching and research interests include operations management and services management. And indeed, she has been one of the strong driving forces behind this event to make this a success. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the conference co-chair, Dr. Nilakshi Galahitiyava.
Thank you, Tharendu. A very good evening to all of you. Let me briefly introduce the aim of Industry Dialogue, PIMARC 2021. Right. The Industry Dialogue is one of the main events of PIM Annual Research Conference. We started this in 2019, having the purpose of translate new knowledge gained from research into the practice. Scientific research is a process of creating warranted knowledge. What is scientific research is? It is upon the empiricism we have done validity and reliability test to prove that the findings can be applied directly to the practice. So through the industry dialogue, what we are trying to do is to bring a wide array of discussion in between practitioners and academia to translate this newly created knowledge into the practice. Why is that? Because in practice, there is a myth about the research that research is only with academia, but that is not true. We do research with empirical evidence. We study the context, and then based on the contextual knowledge, we create theories. And these theories applied back into the practice with methods and tools. And thereby, we are looking at whether the theory is working well or not. If it is not working well, then we understand that there is a need of restate the theory and we need to retest the theory. That is how the circle is going through. So the research and the practice should going hand in hand in order to develop the societal impact in general, but in management, we have to apply this in order to bring the organizational performance specific. What is the perfect definition of knowledge translation means? Knowledge translation is the umbrella term for all the activities involved in moving research from the laboratory, the research journals, that is with what we are publishing, and the academic conferences, that one we have already held yesterday, into the hands of people and organizations who can put it into the practical sense. That is why you all are here. What we do at PIM. So PIM research base is basically coming from the doctoral program and MBA program, as well as we have some other master's level programs. So all programs we have paid much attention on to bring new knowledge, creation of new knowledge. Now this is a forum where we are trying to translate these findings into the practice. So what is there for us to discuss today? Based on the MBA program 2019, we have selected 3 most impactful research, which brings a higher level of societal impact. And these 3 research actually brings emerging concepts where we can directly apply into the practice. So you will be listening to how employee coaching utilizes as a human resource management strategy, then female gender ideology and how it helps to the career advancement, and psychological safety to space-based access organizations. Thus, the industry dialogue of PIMARC provides a platform to academia and practitioners to discuss findings of scientific research and contextualize them into the practical voice. That is what we are aiming for. Thank you very much. We'll move into the deliberation. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nilakshi Galhitia, our co-chair of the PIM Annual Research Conference 2021. As she very clearly stated, the important activity of translating the knowledge created among the academics with the students and getting it out into the industry for practical purposes is indeed the step required in today's world, especially as we are forced to unlearn and relearn and once again re-strategize our business activities. Next, I am deeply honored to be introducing the presenters of today's event, and also to introduce the panel who will be joining us. While I will be introducing the presenters one by one as they come up here to present their papers, I would now like to take time and introduce the panel who is with us here today. We have with us, in no order, Mrs. Farzana Jamil, President's Counsel, who is currently the Senior Additional Solicitor General at the Attorney General's Department. She is a counsel with over 3 decades of litigation experience and a demonstrated history of working for the state. Skilled in litigation, dispute resolution, legal writing, negotiations of contract, advising the government on legislation and foreign borrowing. She has also demonstrated her litigation experience in taxation law, customs law, and excise law, as well as international trade law, among a plethora of other different subdisciplines of law. She has also obtained her master's degree from UCL. and she has been teaching law of trust, legal systems and history, international trade law and administrative law at multiple different institutions at the master's level. She received the Zonta Woman of Achievement in Law Award in 2011 and the Gold Award for Law by Women in Management in 2016. She has also recently been awarded with the Abhiman Lear Award for service to the motherland by Team Hero under the Ministry of Defense. She is also a visiting Justice of Appeal of the Court of Appeal at the Republic of Fiji. Mrs. Jamil, absolute pleasure to have you with us here today. We next have Dr. Marraj Kirialla, founder of the South Asian Multidisciplinary Advisory Services. Dr. Kirialla is a multidisciplinary expert having over 32 years of professional work experience in travel and tourism industry by working in both public and private sectors in Sri Lanka. He has worked in different capacities in senior management level positions in National Tourism Administration and also in areas of research and planning for tourism destination management, marketing and promotions, as well as compliance and standardization. He has held positions as the Director General of Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority and also as the Managing Director of the Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau. Furthermore, he worked as the Director, Research and International Relations, as well as the Director of the Standards and Quality Assurance Institute and the Director of Marketing of the National Tourism Organization of Sri Lanka. He was instrumental in executing innovative techniques to build up the general tourism product with a specific end goal to draw in perceiving travelers to Sri Lanka. Dr. Kirialla has multidisciplinary academic and professional qualifications. He has read for both his bachelor's and master's degree in economics from the University of Colombo, and he holds a Bachelor of Law degree from the Open University of Sri Lanka, while being a chartered marketeer, as well as an attorney general, as well as an attorney at law by profession. He is also a fellow of the Chartered Management Institute of UK and the Chartered Institute of Marketing of UK. Dr. Kirialla, absolute pleasure to have you with us today. Next, we have Dr. Samitha Pereira, Director CEO of CBL Foods International. Dr. Samitha Pereira is the Director CEO of CBL Foods International, and he is an exceptional human resource management professional who has made quick progression from management trainee to director, as well as human resources within a short period of time. His exceptional leadership qualities and his original approaches towards people management and business excellence has gained him a position at the CBL Foods International as Director CEO. Dr. Samitha began his career in 1992 as a management trainee in HRM and hence has shown outstanding skills in leading individuals to achieve extraordinary results. He has experience in many leading organizations, including the Singer Group of Companies, Caltex, as well as British American Tobacco. His contribution towards the industry and profession, the continuous endeavors towards excellence in HRM as a past president of the Institute of Personal Management of Sri Lanka, or CIPM, and his quick progression to the highest level of management gained him the much acclaimed IPEM Lifetime Gold Medal at the National Human Resources Conference in 2013. In March 2016, he was honored by the Postgraduate Institute of Management alumni and Ceylon Chamber of Commerce with the PIMARC Diamond Award for the most outstanding business leader of the year. Dr. Samitha obtained his PhD from the Management Science University of Malaysia and holds an MBA from the University of Lincolnshire and Humberside, UK, and many postgraduate qualifications in different fields. In addition to his core professional areas, he is qualified in management accounting, marketing, industrial engineering, and business psychology. Dr. Samitha Pereira, welcome to the PIM Annual Research Conference. Next, we have Mr. Asanga Ranasinghe, Senior Management Consultant at the Postgraduate Institute of Management. Mr. Asanga Ranasinghe is a renowned marketeer and business leader in the corporate sector, having held various senior leadership roles both in Sri Lanka and overseas in the fields of marketing, sales, and customer development, supply chain, manufacturing, and his area of specialization, corporate strategy. He was spearheading the marketing operations of Unilever Pakistan as Vice President During his tenure of over 20 years at Unilever, Mr. Ranasinghe held many leadership roles in a number of countries, including the post of Customer Development Director for Sri Lanka and Maldives, as well as the Marketing Director of Unilever Sri Lanka. He has also served as a statutory director of the Unilever Sri Lanka board. He has also held esteemed positions in leading corporates, including Brandix, Laughs Holdings, and Bimo. He is a chemistry special honors graduate from the University of Colombo and holds an MBA from the Postgraduate Institute of Management of University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. And he is a chartered marketeer and a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing and holds a professional postgraduate diploma in marketing. Mr. Ranasinghe, welcome to the Industry Dialogue. And finally, let me introduce our esteemed moderator for this evening, who is none other than Professor Ajantha Dharmasiri. Professor Ajantha Dharmasiri is a professor in management at the Postgraduate Institute of Management. He's acclaimed as a conference speaker, corporate trainer, a strategy consultant, author, and an award-winning researcher. He is also an adjunct professor at the Price College of Business from the University of Oklahoma, and he was also the editor of the pioneering Sri Lankan Journal of Management. Professor Ajantha Dharmasiri has also been awarded with the Commonwealth Amdisa Doctoral Fellowship, as well as the Fulbright Postdoctoral Fellowship. And he is also there in the Commonwealth Postdoctoral Fellowship list, while being and serving as an independent director of several leading organizations of Sri Lanka. Professor Ajantha Dharmasiri, absolute pleasure to have you as the moderator this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, that did take time, but such is the caliber and the achievements of the panelists whom we are having here today for the PIM Annual Research Conference 2021's Industry Dialogue. Let me now move on to introducing the first presenter of this evening. She is a lecturer at the Department of Human Resources Management from the University of Kelaniya. She is none other than Ms. V.M. Gunasekara. Her title of research presentation is The Impact of Appraisers' Coaching Role on Individual Work Performance. The impact of appraisers' coaching role on individual work performance. Ms. V.M. Gunasekara, the forum is yours, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Very good evening, distinguished audience. Taking the basis from coaching as a performance management intervention, let me take you through the impact of appraisers' coaching role on individual work performance. So organizational productivity or workplace productivity has been discussed mostly by today's organization, and it is a challenge for almost all the organization. This workplace productivity mostly related to the work performed by the staff at a given period of time. And this workplace productivity heavily depend on employees' performance. So this employees' performance has been identified by organizations as one of the most important aspects, and they have taken measures to enhance employee performance by utilizing several kind of development initiatives. And these development initiatives, when it comes to these development initiatives, those are like training and performance management methods. So in this industry report on training, they have stated that $62 billion have been spent on employee development initiatives, yet at least 50% of that amount has not been returned. So even though these development initiatives are followed by proper performance management interventions, that does not bring the required level of productivity or the performance to the organization. So that is a problem. That's a serious problem for the organizations. And for the reasons, they have identified several reasons, but among those reasons, one of the most important reasons that they have identified is the role performed by the appraiser during the performance appraisal. Because all those development initiatives are mostly followed by performance appraisal process, but these processes are not in effective manner because the role performed by the appraiser is questionable. And according to several authors and CIMA reports, they have found out that appraiser, manager or the supervisor being the appraiser need to perform two major roles, one as the role of judge, second as the role of coach. So in most of the organization, role performed by the appraiser is the role of judge. And that is why they have not gone to the required level of productivity or the performance. So in that sense, role of judge is just assessing the performance. That means it's a reactive process where you assess what your employee has achieved, right? In that sense, they have just treating the wound, not just killing the bug. In that sense, when it comes to the role of coach, it is where you provide constructive feedback and you guide your employee and you show your employees where the development areas are. Further development areas are. So this role of coach needs to be embedded to the appraiser's role in order to achieve high level of performance. And that has been proved by the statistics that 80% of people who have received coaching showed that increase in self-confidence, and 70% of people who have undergone coaching have improved their work performance and strong relationship and enhance their effective communication skills. Furthermore, 80% of organizations have effectively recovered what they have invested in the development initiatives via coaching. And also when it comes to CIMA reports, they have stated that in Sri Lanka, most of the multinational organizations are using coaching up to a certain level in general, but they need to embrace this coaching as a performance management intervention while adhering this coaching role of appraiser to the role of appraiser along with the other roles like leader, guider, and mentor, etc. So when it comes to global context, coaching is one of the most effective tools in performance development, and that has been found by US companies, 50 large US companies survey. And coaching and mentoring are top most powerful leadership development tool that has been found in another study which is done in UK. And 71% of Fortune 500 companies and other private companies utilize coaching in their development initiatives. And also coaching has become one of the leading supervisory role, and that has also been found by several authors. So in this basis, it is pretty much clear that coaching role performed by the appraiser needs to be investigated when enhancing individual work performance. With that, my research question is, what is the impact of appraiser's coaching role on individual work performance of selected multinational organizations in Sri Lanka? So the purpose of my study is to investigate the impact of appraiser's coaching role on individual work performance. And to achieve this purpose, I have specific objectives. The first objective of my study was to identify the impact of appraiser's coaching role on individual work performance. Second, to identify to what extent motivation to learn, motivation to transfer, impact on appraiser's coaching role and individual work performance. And thirdly, to identify to what extent self-efficacy moderates the relationship between motivation to learn and motivation to transfer and individual work performance. So having that research question, purpose, and objectives, I have developed my conceptual framework. In here, individual work performance, which is the effort exerted by individual on achieving a certain task, would be favorably affected by the appraiser's coaching role. And this relationship between appraiser's coaching role and the individual work performance would be impacted by individual's motivation to learn and individual's motivation to transfer what he or she has learned. And then the relationship between this motivation to learn, motivation to transfer, and individual work performance would be impacted by self-efficacy. Self-efficacy in the sense, people's inner belief on his or her capacity, to what extent they can execute their behavior to achieve a certain specific task. So in that way, I have given my methodology here. The methodology I have used is quantitative study, it's my study, and I have used cross-sectional method because I have collected data at one specific time. And I have used structured questionnaire, self-administered structured questionnaire to collect data. And I have used SPSS and AMOS for data analysis. And my unit of analysis was work employees. And the population of my study was executive level employees in multinational organizations in Sri Lanka. And from that population, I have selected 300 executive employees who have undergone at least one performance appraisal process. And the sampling technique I have used is convenient sampling. And when it comes to survey data, I have collected data from 300 sample, and my response rate was 88% one. So based on that data, I have analyzed my data and the key findings I got were: appraiser's coaching role has a significant impact on individual work performance. And secondly, motivation to learn, motivation to transfer mediates the relationship between appraiser's coaching role and individual work performance. Then self-efficacy was found to be a moderator to the relationship between motivation to learn, motivation to transfer, and individual work performance. So now I would like to move on to the most important part of my presentation, that is key findings of my research, how it is applicable to the industry. So to discuss this application of my key findings to the industry, I have identified three major managerial issues that could be solved using the findings of my research. So the first managerial issue which I have identified is coaching has been misunderstood as not serious and less developed competency in the organizational context. So based on my finding, appraiser's coaching role has an impact on individual work performance. This finding basically fed way to managers that they should focus not only on managing performance, but also they should focus on appraiser's coaching role in enhancing individual work performance. So for that purpose, I have given some recommendations which could be applicable to the industry. So as the first recommendation, the managers could develop mechanisms to identify the current rules performed by the appraisers, and then they can provide training and other necessary facilitations to improve the skills and the experience in coaching, so that the appraisers could embrace those kind of skills to their charisma, and they can become coaches. They can become better coaches who would guide their employees to the individual work performance, development of individual work performance. Then secondly, effective mentoring process could be continuously guide the appraisers for coaching their appraisees. So that mentoring and coaching are two different things, where mentoring is considering more of a holistic aspect, whereas coaching is more of a task-oriented aspect. So this mentoring process could help appraisers in order to guide their role when coaching their appraisees. And as third point, I have given that appraisers should provide real-time rewards and recognition for the coaching role they are provided, the coaching role they are performed in performance management appraisal. And that is a serious thing to do, because when the appraiser performs the role of coach, that role needs to be identified and that role needs to be rewarded properly, so that the appraiser will himself or herself would be more motivated to perform that role, and from that individual work performance could be enhanced. And when it comes to fourth point, that is providing organizational support for effective management of coaching process. Above all, that is very much important, because although we recommend appraisers to perform the role of coach, that needs to be supported by the organizational policies and procedures. Otherwise, that would not be a success. So organizational support is a must for effective management of coaching process. And as the second managerial issue, I have identified organizations are not serious about people motivation to learn and transfer. So my finding reveals that motivation to learn and motivation to transfer mediates the relationship between appraiser's coaching role and individual work performance. So in that sense, it is not only coaching, but also people's motivation to learn and motivation to transfer are important when it comes to enhancing performance. Because although you provide coaching, if the person is not motivated or if the person is not motivated to transfer what he or she has learned, that would not be a success. So in that sense, I have given some recommendation. As the first recommendation, I would like to explain the appraiser should be able to align appraisee's career goals with the organizational goals and provide them with the promising path via coaching to reach their goals, so that the appraisee knows that where he is going and how he is going. And developing organizational policies on developing supporting learning culture and learning organization. That is very much important, because now in contemporary organization, learning organizations are more competitive and more attention driven when it comes to organizational cultures. So this learning culture need to be embedded for the organization, and that would facilitate the individual's motivation to learn. And when it comes to other aspects, encourage learning by appropriate rewards, and especially non-financial in coaching culture. That is another aspect, and it is very much important, because you have to reward your employees once they are motivated to learn and motivated to transfer. Then they know that their motivation is recognized by the organization. This recognition could be just a title or a praise in the meeting. That could not be something financial, but like that, you can reward your employees. So they know their motivation has been identified by the organization, and that is important. And when it comes to the fourth point, it is people should be facilitated with the practice what they have learned. And that is again very much important, because nowadays organizations are providing training. They have spent a huge amount of money on training, but when the employees are coming back to the organization, they are not facilitated with the required facilities to practice this learning actually in the organizational setting. So that is a huge issue, and that is a problem that needs to be addressed. So in that sense, to motivate employees to transfer and to motivate employees to learn, that needs to be facilitated with the organizational culture and the organizational policies and procedures. And as the third managerial issue, I have identified self-efficacy as a crucial for goal achievement, though it is not focused well. As the finding, I have found that self-efficacy moderates the impact of motivation to learn, motivation to transfer, and individual work performance. So people empowerment need to be there when building organizational measures relating to the coaching and performance management. Because without people empowerment, we cannot achieve other aspects. Although you are facilitating employees with motivation to learn, motivation to transfer, without employees inner self-confident or their inner ability to, they know of inner ability about themselves, achieving a certain behavior, when achieving a proper objective, proper goal, that if that is not there, then motivation to learn and motivation to transfer would not be successful. So in order to successfully motivation transfer and motivation to learn and to achieve individual work performance via this motivation to learn and motivation to transfer, there should be people empowerment. So I have 3 recommendations here for people empowerment. First one, we could enable mastering experience. So what is this mastery experience? It is, we could align jobs rightly with the people so that people could excel in what they are doing and can become masters. And secondly, social modeling. We can enable social modeling. That is, we can show people how others be successful in achieving the highest they can. And thirdly, social persuasion, that is very much could be achieved via coaching. That means overall feedback mechanism where you guide, you give constructive feedback, and you convince your employees that you can do. So these kind of initiatives could be embraced by the organization, and by doing so, they can empower their people. Then they'll be motivated and drive towards the individual work performance enhancement. And overall, as an overall conclusion, my study basically found out that appraiser coaching role could greatly contribute to the enhancement of individual work performance in multinational organizations, and motivation to learn, motivation to transfer mediates the relationship between appraiser's coaching role and individual work performance in multinational organizations, and self-efficacy moderates the relationship between motivation to learn, motivation to transfer, and it enhances the individual work performance in multinational organizations. So managers could take the measures to train their appraisers coaching role as a mean of enhancing performance, and also at the same time, they could take measures to enhance individual motivation to learn, motivation to transfer, and self-efficacy. So above all, what my study focuses is employee development. So employee development is key to organizational development. And as Google has identified, coaching is one of the most desired behaviors of managers. And as industry practitioners, you all could embrace coaching as a performance management intervention, so that you can enhance individual performance as and also productivity of the organization, even in this kind of a pandemic situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gunasekara, for that very insightful research presentation on a very pertinent topic of getting the best out of your employees with the proper coaching approach. Thank you once again. Our next presenter is Ms. Hashini Vikramasinghe. She is attached to the Estate Management and Valuation Department of the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce at the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. Her title of research presentation is The Effect of Psychological Safety and Self-Control of Psychological Ownership Towards Access-Based Services. The effect of psychological safety and self-control on psychological ownership towards access-based services. Ms. Hashini Vikramasinghe.
Hi, thank you. Good evening to the very distinguished audience. Let me first thank the organizing committee of PIM Annual Research Conference 2021 for having us here today. I'm truly honored to be here. So my presentation today based on the topic of the my master's thesis. Before moving on to the main content of the presentation, I would like to ask one question from you all by highlighting one question, one point. Is an ownership essential to develop feelings of ownership? Is an ownership essential to develop feelings of ownership? I wouldn't want an answer now, and you may not have an exact answer now, but I believe that you will get the answer to this question during my presentation within next 15 to 20 minutes. So when moving to the study problem, we all know that sharing is considered as a sustainable and profitable alternative to ownership. And this has had a major disruptive impact on almost all the industries and businesses worldwide. Further, it has had a major disruptive impact on people's perception towards ownership and consumption practices. So these changes in people's preferences, and along with the advancement in digital technology, has nurtured the arrival of this unique service innovation called access-based consumption. So access-based services are where people can access to products and services for a defined period of time in return for an access payment or a membership fee, while the legal ownership remains with the owner or the original proprietor, who is often the service provider. These access-based services offer various benefits. If we look at the big picture, these access-based services address the issues related to resource overconsumption, resource underutilization, and sustainability efforts towards climate change. However, all these direct, indirect, long-term, short-term benefits, evidence shows that these services are struggling to induce sufficient demand. There are plenty of access-based service categories. There are accommodation, transport, fashion, financial services, freelancer services, and the current study focused on shared workspaces or workspace sharing because it has been recorded as the least shared category out of these access-based service categories. These also provide various categories and they cater to various prevailing concerns such as issues in working from home and traditional offices, and increasing demand for convenient and affordable workplaces, especially for freelancers, startup companies, small to medium scale entrepreneurs, digital nomads, and also changing preferences for workspaces with modern amenities, especially in this competitive business arena. Still, the evidence shows that the demand for these access-based co-working space is also low at both global and local context. So this significant failure to induce sufficient demand for these non-ownership or access-based services encourage scholars to find out what determines the success of these services. A set of scholars have found that the demand for these services is negatively influenced by possession importance. Negatively influenced by possession importance. What does possession importance means? That means people still prefer legal or actual or physical ownership over temporary access. They want physical and actual legal ownership. They don't want temporary access. And by perceiving this evidence, another set of scholars in their very successful recent 2021 study, they have found that as a solution, increasing service psychological ownership can be used as an alternative. Increasing service psychological ownership can be used as an alternative. What does psychological ownership means? Psychological ownership is a state where an individual feels that the target ownership is theirs. So if you feel like you have something, but you don't have the legal ownership, but you feel that it's like yours, right? We have certain things in our life, we don't have the legal ownership, but feel like those things are actually mine or ours. So that's where the psychological ownership feelings can be stimulated. However, although this has been recently found as an alternative to substitute this actual or legal ownership, the reasoning behind this has not been explored yet. And also, when looking at the previous studies, it was quite evident that these previous studies have focused more on transportation sector access-based categories. So space sharing is rarely touched. Psychological ownership theory is the best theory as it views self-identity, self-efficacy and communal identification can stimulate psychological ownership senses. Other than that, ensuring psychological safety, where an individual can show their true selves without being someone else or without behaving like someone else. You can show your true self to others if the environment is psychologically safe to you. But this has not been conceptualized in the psychological ownership theory. And also differences in personality types. Differences in personality types that can also affect to the stimulation of psychological ownership senses. Still, this has not been well conceptualized in the psychological ownership theory. Accordingly, the research questions are formed as: what factors determine psychological ownership towards access-based services? Why these factors influence psychological ownership? And when these factors influence psychological ownership? Deriving from these questions, the main purpose of the study is formed as to examine the factors affecting psychological ownership towards access-based services, why and what, under what conditions or when these factors affect to psychological ownership towards access-based services. So in order to achieve this main purpose, the relationships in the psychological ownership theory were empirically validated in the access-based co-working space context. And also the role of psychological safety on the relationships in the psychological ownership theory towards access-based co-working space also examined. Finally, the role of self-control on the relationship between psychological safety and psychological ownership is also examined. So this is the model of the study developed using literature in order to explain possible relationship between these factors, and psychological ownership attracts a main focus of the model. Self-identity means the labels that individuals use to describe themselves or to show who they are. So if using access-based services contribute in creating, transforming, and maintaining one's self-identity, that can lead to attachment feelings. That means that can stimulate psychological ownership senses. Self-efficacy. Self-efficacy in this study means someone's ability to control, to contribute, to influence one's surrounding. So when access-based service users feel that they have this opportunity to contribute to their surrounding, to access-based service operation, they can control something in this space. That can lead to attachment feelings or stimulation of psychological ownership senses. Communal identification. Human in nature, we want to have some territoriality. We want to feel that a certain level of sense of belongingness to a particular community, to a particular place. So when access-based users feel that they are surrounded by like-minded people, they belong to this place, that can create attachment feelings, that can stimulate psychological ownership senses. And then the impact of psychological safety, the ability to show individuals' true selves is also introduced to the model. And this can be achieved through self-identity, self-efficacy, and communal identification. As I explained, self-control, which means how people describe individuality. How people describe individual. That means to what extent people depend on others and their assistance. So there are basically there are two categories: independent and interdependent. Obviously, independent people depend less on others, and interdependent people depend to a higher level, they depend on others. So based on this, independent self-control individuals may not worry about whether the environment is psychologically safe or not. And on the other hand, interdependent, which means as they depend more on others, they will be more conscious whether their environment is psychologically safe or not. So likewise, that self-control may have an impact on psychological safety, leading to psychological ownership. So data were collected from individual co-working space users using a structured printed questionnaire, and 85.3 effective response rate was achieved, leading to a 314 final sample size. So findings reveal that All the direct impacts were supported. So all my conceptualized relationships were supported. And the mediation effect of psychological safety was also supported. And the moderating impact of self-control was also supported. So when moving to the industry applications, which is the most important part here today, the managerial issues that we identify at the beginning are listed here. And in order to solve all these managerial issues, developing a sense of psychological ownership was found. And for that, what are the factors we have to focus? Self-identity, self-efficacy, communal identification, and the new inclusions, psychological safety, and self-control. So linking these findings to the industry applications, I have recommended 6 industry applications to the access-based service providers, managers, and decision makers. Let me go through them one by one in brief. So self-identity was found as important in creating or stimulating psychological ownership senses. Even though the motivations of self-identity is somewhat beyond the control of managerial influence, managers still can alter their service offerings. They can customize their options in order to link them to the self-identity related preferences of their customers. For example, in access-based co-working space context, there are customers who are freelancers, who tend to be flexible, who prefer their environment also to be flexible. So the access-based services and the options should also be flexible. So opening up the space from 8 in the morning to 5 in the evening may not be a good idea if you want to attract such type of customers. And also along with that, the promotional campaign should include the elements related to self-identity preferences such as logos, taglines, and figures in order to showcase that self-identity preferences are accommodated in these service offerings and there are options available. When moving to the second finding, which is related to the third application, self-efficacy was found important. So access-based users should feel that they have the ability to contribute to their surrounding. So we have to increase their self-efficacy. We have to give them control. We have to give them control. So for that, managers can make them endogenous to the access-based operation by taking their comments, suggestions, and complaints into consideration. So having a documented complaint handling procedure or locating a suggestion box somewhere will not make any difference unless you make a genuine effort to do any visible alterations. So ensuring communal identification was also found important. So in order to access-based users to feel that they belong somewhere, they have to engage with the community. So be interactive with the community itself is an opportunity. They can share knowledge, they can meet new people, they can meet potential customers or business partners. But for that, they have to interact with each other. So how managers can interfere? They can create communities. They can allocate communal spaces. So they can have a chit chat over a beer or a tea. So they can improve their interactivity. They can expand their networks. So ensuring a psychological safe environment also go hand in hand with this. So in order to make that happen, again, programs can be arranged, such as mindful programs and ice-breaking programs, even cooking programs would do. Finally, as self-control or the personality type differences in terms of whether they are independent or interdependent was also found important in stimulating psychological ownership senses. So managers are recommended to profile their customers based on the self-control type. So whether they fall into the independent category or interdependent category. Accordingly, they have to adjust their service offerings and available facility options. For example, for individuals with interdependent self-control, large connected desk with a large in a large communal area would be ideal, because they like to be surrounded by people and they like to depend on others. But on the other hand, for individuals with independent self-control, secluded or private areas or options should be available, because they tend to depend less on others compared to the interdependent category. So we are almost at the end of my presentation. So here I would like to highlight the key implications. And for that, the impact of psychological safety as a mediator and the impact of self-control as the moderator to the psychological ownership theory can be highlighted as theoretical implications, and managerial implications focused on providing customized service offerings depending on users' self-identity, and make customers endogenous to access-based operation to make them feel that they have this self-efficacy, they have the control, and increasing communities to interact to create interpersonal connection in order to make them feel like they belong there, and also they feel that the environment is psychologically safe. And finally, profiling customers to identify individual preferences is also recommended as an application. So now I would like to ask the same question again. I'm sure now you have the answer. Because ownership is not essential. It is not essential to create feelings of ownership. And you know what factors to be focused on creating this psychological ownership. So if you are a access-based co-working space provider, manager, or anyone related to the decision-making process directly, don't try lowering your fees. Don't try lowering your service quality to fight back with actual ownership or to win back customers. Instead, try increasing your service psychological ownership. And also, if anyone of you want to try it out, I will be more than happy to give my further inputs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wickramasinghe. Ownership and the feeling of ownership. What an intriguing question that was. Our final presenter for this evening, after which we will move on to the enlightening panel discussion with our esteemed panel, will be presented by Ms. W.R.M. Shehani Shanika. She is attached to the Legal Studies Unit at the Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce at the University of Sri Jayewardenepura. And her title, ladies and gentlemen, is "What Causes Women Lawyers to Hit a Glass Ceiling? A Suggestion for Legal Education and Professional Institutes in Sri Lanka." What causes women lawyers to hit a glass ceiling? A suggestion for legal education and professional institutes in Sri Lanka. Ms. W.R.M. Shehani Shanika. The forum is yours, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'm presenting this audience more than a presenter. I'm representing one of the noble professions in the world. As a women lawyer, today I'm going to unveil one of the severe problems that exist in the legal profession of Sri Lanka. All the women lawyers out there facing the similar problem. Sometimes I may have to face the same problem in future. So why don't I find a solution? When we talk about legal profession of Sri Lanka, many years back, it was limited to males. Only men permitted to enter in the legal profession. After 1931, the law and the government permitted to enter women to the legal profession.
Afterwards, now we are in 21st century. Many women lawyers enter into the profession. Now the legal profession is gradually being feminizing. In this background, many international legal instruments, including United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2030, emphasize importance of ensuring gender equality as well as promoting non-discriminatory laws and policies within institutions. However, when particularly come to the legal profession, UN Women and International Commission of Jurists emphasize inclusion of women in the highest level of decision-making to enable equal justice, independence of judiciary, to facilitate equal delivery of justice. There are a lot of international commitments as a government. Sri Lanka abide to promote inclusion women in highest level of decision-making. However, what Sri Lanka experienced? Moving to the focal point of my study, in 2017, many years back, the data was reported more than 50% of population in the legal profession were women. However, less than 30% of them opt judiciary. Why? Next, among the women who selected the judiciary, only less than 20% achieved to senior positions of decision-making. Only 2 female judges were at the Supreme Court. Why? Within this background, I just want to see what causes women lawyers to hit a glass ceiling. Having a problem is not enough as an academics. We should look at our problem from the theoretical lens. There are a lot of theories available to weave career advancement. However, I'm focusing women career advancement, particularly kaleidoscope career model of social cognitive career theory focuses on women career advancement while adjoining with career choice. This theory has been criticized for the lack of information it has been kept on the influence of psychological factors that would influence on career choice. Identifying the theoretical lacuna, I just want to find how could I provide a solution for this in light of the theory. Gender identity theory. It has identified gender identity could be viewed from 3 perspectives. First one, biological gender. That's whether you're a male or a female. Second aspect, psychological gender, whether you are a masculine or feminine. Third one, gender ideology. Out of these 3 predictors, I have picked psychological gender, which conceptualize into perceived gender ideology. Doesn't matter whether you're a female, but if you perceive yourself with masculine traits, then you would fit with your behavioral outcomes. In light of gender identity theory, psychological gender creates behavioral outcomes, including career choice. Adjoining both theories, gender identity theory and kaleidoscope career model of social cognitive career theory, my research has attempted to fill the existing gap which has not been addressed psychological factors in the context of kaleidoscope career model. Moving forward, to answer this problem, my research has proposed 2 questions. First one, what is the impact of perceived gender on career advancement? Perceived gender ideology on career advancement. Second one, What is the role of career choice on the relationship between perceived gender ideology and career advancement? To answer these research questions, main purpose of my study is to examine the impact of perceived gender ideology and career choice on career advancement of women in the legal profession. There are 4 main research objectives I have formulated to identify influence of perceived gender ideology on career advancement, to identify the impact of influence of perceived gender ideology on career choice, to identify into influence of perceived career choice on career advancement, and to identify the role of career choice on the relationship between perceived gender ideology and career advancement. Based on the theory, I hope you can remember the 2 theories I have pointed out: kaleidoscope career model of social cognitive career theory and the gender identity theory. Central focus of my research problem lies on career advancement. So career advancement is influenced by career choice. Career choice formulates with 3 parameters in terms of authenticity, balance, and challenge. Authenticity means how much, to what extent you can be true to yourself. How much you can be genuine in decision making. Balance, work-life balance. How you can balance your family with your professional commitments. Challenge, whether you really like to have a challenge in your career. So this model has lack of psychological influence. Psychological factors have been disregarded for a long period of time. So connecting with gender identity theory, you can see perceived gender ideology, how it can impact on career choice as a behavioral outcome. So the main contribution that I may present to this audience is the impact of perceived gender ideology on career advancement. So let's see how it ends. In order to investigate my research problem and the raised questions, this is the path I have followed, a scientific method of investigating into a problem. My research is based on positivism paradigm and structured questionnaire used as survey instrument, and data analysis have been conducted through AMOS and SPSS. Unit of analysis was a women lawyer in mid and late career. So the population, women lawyers in mid and late career stages in Sri Lanka. Sample 360 women lawyers. I have selected from different job categories in the legal profession, including private attorneys, state counsels, lecturers, even the lawyers who only work with deeds, those who work in private firms. Wide array of participants joined with my study to bring this output that I'm presenting today in front of you. With their contribution, so to select them, the sampling method I have used is purposive sampling method, because out of all the women, I need to pick the women lawyers who in mid and late career stages. So the purposive sample utilized. Out of these support of the respondents, the data collected, analyzed, and there were 360 participants to bring the output, and also the responsive rate was more than 77%. What were the key findings of my study? Perceived gender ideology of mid and late career women lawyers in Sri Lanka had an impact on their career advancement. And perceived gender ideology of mid and late career women lawyers had an impact on their career choice. However, career choice, which was the main tenets of kaleidoscope career model, there was no impact on career advancement of women lawyers in mid and late career stages, because this theory so far has been tested in many European contexts, and most professions were not based on a professional ideology, and legal profession, particularly in Sri Lanka, but also in the world, it was recognized as one of the male-dominated professions, and the highest level of decision-making required more masculinity traits. So, and also in Sri Lanka, for women lawyers, there are less career opportunities available. So career choice may not be that much of interesting, and sometimes they may have to pick one or two options. And also career choice, I think you remember, it was combination of 3 parameters: authenticity, balance, and challenge. So variant of the different attitudes of people. In the data analysis, it was proved that career choice was not strong enough to provide career advancement of women lawyers in Sri Lanka. However, career choice has been a mediator between the relationship, perceived gender ideology, and career advancement, which means if a women lawyer make a career choice after identifying gender ideology correctly in terms of masculine and feminine, it would lead their career advancement. What my findings impact to the legal profession? My first issue was very few women lawyers opt judiciary or bar. Why? Many of them try to quit their job after higher education. They like to bake cookies at home sometimes. Why? It says finding is perceived gender ideology, how they perceive themselves. They feel that this professional ideology would not enough for me as a woman who's having a feminine traits to move forward. In order to address this, I suggest the change should start with women themselves. They have to change the way that they have looked into themselves. More than collecting certificates, professional or educational, they have to think about what is their perceived gender and how to translate their perceived gender to cater demands or expectations of the profession in order to successful in the career. Main responsibility is vested with educational and professional institutes. In Sri Lanka, government and non-government institutions invest a lot of amount on breeding lawyers. But in decision making, if they have not incorporated at a satisfactory level, where those money goes. Right. And also legal and professional institutions, when formulating curriculums, they more focus on substantial subjects, legal subjects. But in relation to their career, their knowledge, competencies, how they survive in the profession, how they excel in the profession, what characteristics they wanted to develop, those things the future lawyers need to be learned. Because feminization of the legal profession is unavoidable. Now more than 50% of the profession encroached by women. So we need to provide solution. We have to train them to fit with higher positions future. Next, mid and late career women lawyers, they have least representation at senior levels. Why? Because, again, they are perceived gender. The organizations responsible for professional conduct, institutions within the legal profession, and institutions outside the legal profession, they must focus on developing women lawyers' attitudes towards their profession. There are a lot of investment, even I personally gathered from these institutions to develop our different qualifications. But when it comes to personal level, how you perceive yourself and what is the expectation of the profession? What judiciary, highest role of the judiciary, what really they need? What the legal from women lawyer, what expects by the profession? What is the existing professional ideology? So we must train women lawyers to adapt and adopt these characteristics to improve themselves and lead career advancement. Career choice has not been impactful on career advancement in Sri Lankan context, which was challenging the kaleidoscope career model in Sri Lankan situation. That is because there are less career opportunities. Career interest basically based on career choice. In order to evolve career choice, organizations should facilitate the working environment to cater needs of women lawyers as well among all the other workforce. And organizations within the legal system. Expectations established professional ideology within court system of Sri Lanka and other state organizations has to be drastically changed to cater demands of women. Otherwise, the investing amount the government on breeding lawyers would not be that much useful if all the women lawyers or few women lawyers try to quit their jobs after graduating, or if they are not involved in decision making. At the very first stage, I told you, UNSD development goals emphasize importance of inclusion of women perspectives in decision making. In Sri Lanka, if that perspective is not sufficiently incorporated, so the universal norms of establishing equal delivery of justice would not be effective, maybe a daydream sometimes. In order to conclude my presentation, now you might have answers to my question, what causes women lawyers to hit a glass ceiling? That is, of course, the perceived gender ideology. And fulfilling the available theoretical gap, perceived gender ideology has been explained and unexplained area in the kaleidoscope career model, adjoining with gender identity theory. And the recommendations I have forwarded to legal education and professional institutes would utilize to attract, motivate, and retain women lawyers in the profession, because mid and late career women lawyers are very experienced and their contribution is very valuable to the profession. And also these personality traits in terms of masculine and feminine are not inborn qualities. Those can be shaped by socialization processes. So the main responsibility is on the hands of education and professional institutes responsible to breed women lawyers to the nation. To conclude my presentation, these proactive measures, if the institutions followed, the legal profession will be revamped in order to respond to tremendous feminization. So what causes women lawyers to hit a glass ceiling? That is perceived gender. We have to start from the grassroots level to change the attitude towards the profession. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. W.R.M. Shihani Shanika, for that very interesting and insightful research presentation. I'm sure indeed that our panelists will have a lot to discuss, comment, and share their thoughts on these very pertinent topics as well. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to the three presenters of this evening. It's my absolute pleasure now to invite the panelists to the stage to discuss these presented topics further and enlighten the audience, both who are physically present here today as well as joining us online from all corners of the world, on their thoughts, their perceptions on these very pertinent topics that were discussed, and how these research can further be looked into and applied in the business world. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to invite the panelists for this evening. We have with us today Mrs. Farzana Jamil, President's Counsel and Senior Additional Solicitor General at the Attorney General's Department. Dr. Marraj Kirialla, founder of the South Asia Multidisciplinary Advisory Services. Dr. Samita Pereira, CEO Director of CBL Foods International. Mr. Asanga Ranasinghe, Senior Management Consultant of the Postgraduate Institute of Management. And of course, our moderator for this evening is Professor Ajanta Dharmasiri, Professor in Management at the Postgraduate Institute of Management. Ladies and gentlemen, please take the stage. Ajanta Dharmasiri, the forum is yours, sir.
Thank you, Tarindu. Ayubowan, a good day to each and every one of you. May you have good health and grand happiness. So it gives me immense pleasure to be here in this August occasion where we have the industry dialogue. It is something different to the typical industry forum associated with any typical research conference. It is to bring industry people to discuss something common among them and to get their expert views. Here we do things differently. So PIM is famous for being different. So here we connect the researchers with practitioners, bringing people from two different worlds and to bridge that gap, building a connection, having that nexus clearly established. So sometimes we see researchers they are in their own world. They do research for the sake of doing research, and research. Whereas the practitioner, they keep on doing things the way they have heard, the way they have practiced, the way they have been doing over and over and over again. So there's a big gulf that we need to bridge. So that's the whole intention of having this dialogue between two parties, the conversation between two different groups. So thank you, Dr. Seneka Kalum Gamage and PIM for giving this opportunity. And thank you, my dear learning partners. That's a term that we used at PIM because we learn together. We partner to share knowledge together. So these three wonderful presenters, they did the justice for their final year research projects, and they went the extra mile in producing especially the particular report for this industry dialogue, and they went ahead in preparing themselves in making a presentation, tailoring for the practitioners, tailoring for the industry experts who are waiting to pick something meaningful. So I think Vindhya, Hashini and Shehani, all of you did the justice. So now the opportunity to get some insights from the relevant experts from the industry. So I have the pleasure and privilege of having experts around me. So my job as a moderator becomes much easier when I see the experts who have come well prepared and who are willing to share their insights with regard to the three papers. So the game plan would be in round one, each of the experts would give comments on the respective paper assigned to them. And they might ask questions from you in order to get any clarifications if required. And in round two, I will ask a probing question from each of the panelists. And in round two, my dear audience, whether you are physical or virtual, you have the opportunity to ask questions from the panelists. And then there's a chat box option. And when you type the chat question, and Dr. Nilakshi Galetiava is very much there, eagerly waiting to read out your relevant question, and you can direct it to a particular panelist or to any panelist in general. So we would entertain your questions, and we would ensure that it will be a meaningfully enriching, insightful, intellectual interaction. So let me begin by turning to Dr. Samita Pereira. He is a rare combination of HR professional reaching to CEO level, which we see that rare breed in Sri Lanka. So turning to Vindhya's paper, the coaching role of an appraiser leading to individual performance. I see the appraisal business, the annual performance evaluation, the performance feedback as a thorny issue around the globe. And there's one research finding that only 65%, or rather even 65% of the people are dissatisfied with the existing performance management system. I wanted to try this out and to see how it is Sri Lanka. So last Saturday, as part of the MBA online session, I did a poll and I asked from the 300 plus participants, how do you look at your performance management system? So we got the rating. So majority of them gave the rating below the midpoint out of 5-point scale. So the majority were dissatisfied than satisfied. So this is the global reality, this is the local reality. So in such a context, Dr. Samita, how would you look at what India has done, the coaching role of an appraiser?
Thanks. Thank you, Professor, for that pertinent question. And also, India, you did a great job and putting together the whole coaching concept and looking at from more empirical point of view, how coaching could really impact the business, especially on the individual work process and then the business. You try to link the what is really the burning issues and what kind of a success factors that you need to have for you to get the coaching successful in the business, right? So that was your whole objective of the school. And doing so, when you're listening to your stuff and your abstract, I felt that you have tried to achieve 3 things, which you really looked at it as key success factors. One is that a motivation to learn, right? Somebody to motivation to learn. I need to learn and then work, right? I have a gap, and therefore that I have really fulfilled this gap for me to do this role. That eager of learning, right? It has come out from your research. Then second, in terms of sphere of coaching, somebody need to really share the knowledge or transfer the skill that the coachee or like coachee doesn't have, right? And so that also has really illustrated well, not only that willingness or not only that motivation, but there has to be a party that willing to really share, right? For you to be successful on this coaching. Then also you brought it out, the efficacy part of it, like, yes, there's a willingness and there's a share, but these two are not marrying together because of the efficacy or like probably the ego factors, And so those 3 things are very eminent from your research. Of course, your problem statement, which will take very critically later. We have gone into problem statement, you share it, your objectives are very specific, and then your conceptual framework. I felt in that efficacy could have been on more towards before you start the session than the after the session, right? Because for you to start the session, your efficacy levels has to be really very much tuned for them to start the coaching. Yeah, maybe in the conceptual framework would have been another factor or like a pre-factor on that. And so on the research finding, you have linear modeling, I believe, like, it is really seen there. So I feel this is good things. And then also this timely, and wish any organization could use this without trying that I don't have money to train. Yeah, we have seen some other organizations, especially when it comes to training and development, most of the HR guys saying, look here, we don't have money to do training. But of course, your resource pool is inside through a concept of coaching. Yeah, so in a matter of that, you implement the right intervention to bring the coaching inside, will help you really achieve the same thing with your try to get to the training intervention, probably a classroom or whatever the intervention you're looking at it, right? So in that sense, I think it's a great that as academia, if I put my spec as academia, it's a great thing that you're doing it, right? So now let's look at the critically. So will this concept will buy by the industries, right? So they will come and tell you when they come and implement this coaching concept. Probably that we need to have some winning proposition for the industry for this. Right, I would have said, look here, I could have really put some burning issues for success stories in that the research about maybe 30, 40 companies what you did to really show up, right? And maybe in your preliminary investigations, they have really looked at it. These organizations really implemented coaching. Therefore, like, they have achieved this kind of a results. Yeah, if it is manufacturing or service, like another you broadly say is multinational, probably you can say you could have said, look here, in my preliminary investigations, out of these 30 organizations, 20 organizations have really implemented this stuff, and it's really in practice. Therefore, in manufacturing, they have reduced the wastage, and they are really competent. Your operators, your line leaders are really competent to really manage the leakages of your value chain. Yeah. So we mean really tangible for industry to attract. Yeah. Maybe service industry, another example, customer service or repeat customers have been increased due to this concept which is implemented in this organization. So because the industry is really, moving fast, probably as Professor was rightly saying and Dr. Khalum was rightly talking about, I mean, sometimes the research is becoming very alien. Yeah, it's academic. Since now both end, like two legs are there, and I can see, look here, you see as academic when you really in a board meeting or wherever that you're going to talk. Yeah, that's sort of an academic perspective getting in, right? So you have a fight, and when I'm doing my research, then you see your industries, you're not an academic, right? So this both then fight is there. So for us to really bring a value for our concept, it's important industry to pick that. Yes, that concept is great. And there's a success story. And therefore, they're going to pick that up and implement it. So your application of your research would really benefit and really get a good demand if we have a tangible, empirical evidence of success stories. That will help. So all the elements are there in your research. All the elements are there. Probably the marketing part of it, like, how are you going to really get this maybe an improvement that you can do it. Yeah, and that's where I see it because if you really present this as a in front of a board, yeah, coaching is a good concept and that can really add value, and this is other research kind of stuff, may not really buy. But if you say, no guys, you can solve this problem, these organizations have solved this problem and they have really saved money on training and people's satisfaction has gone up well, right? So that kind of stuff. And also I believe like culture and the leadership that plays a vital role there, and pretty much vital role in your managerial issues that you had discussed on how you're going to really reward people in having the right coaching culture or having success of the coaching culture or willingness to really go for coaching. I believe, yes, it would reward that, but that reward has to be a self-oriented stuff, right? So when if I'm doing a presentation, still I'm doing that, I have a coach. Why I have a burning to do better. So if I'm going to do a presentation, should I really do it better? Or can I really get an expert to really view this presentation before I go for a public forum? Yeah, one example. I'll see another example in my career. One of the organization, I was HR director in that organization, and we were given a coach a good telephone operator who was a news reader at that time, TNL. And she was very good. Vocabulary was very good. Voice variations very good. Articulations very good. So which we were lacking. And so that kind of a skill would have been transferred even from a visual level to the highest level in the organization. So that, as you rightly said, the willingness, the efficacy, the culture, and acceptance of these concepts, like, down to earth, I need to learn and I need to do my job well. These are the factors that I think believing that you're bringing in. And it's cool, like, it's there, but bring some punch for that. So for industry to buy that, and this is what, yes, this is something that we can do. This is successful. And why not? Why you are spending X million of money? And when you have internal resources to do these things. So it's a matter of the leadership to really create that culture and buy these things. I'm a firm believer in coaching. And so which I think, thanks for giving me this opportunity, Professor, and selecting the right topic, by the way, and not the ABS and not the legal. So thank you. That's my first kind of this thing. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Samita Pereira. I think he mentioned something very interesting, the wow factor. When you make a presentation to a very busy business audience, what is there for me? The wow factor, the sensational factor. Some say, if you are to put a newspaper heading based on your research, what is that one sentence? What is that one line? I think that's where we need to concentrate on. So let me ask a closing question, Dr. Samita Pereira. Now you are a leader. Say now, she argued that some are playing the role of a judge more than a coach, as an evaluator, as an appraiser. Are you playing the coaching role with people who are directly reporting to you? Do they appreciate you as a coach or as a judge?
I think there you try to connect with your people only on appraisal. This is the biggest problem we have, right? You try to work with the guys, fine, this is what right, this is what wrong. And some organizations, some leaders, they keep, your historical stuff. You did this in January. Can you remember? Right? You did this in January and you are telling this in December, right? Therefore, look here, I have an issue on this. So this culture, I was fighting for this, all the organizations. Your coaching has to be a way of life. They say, I'm the CEO there. Like I have given a responsibility by the shareholders to deliver certain objectives, which I agree with the board, with the owners. This is what I am to do. And this is my responsibility. So I have a team down there to support me to get this done. So if there is any knowledge gap or competency gap, which is, it could be a functional competency, technical competency, or a leadership or a behavior. So it's my responsibility because I'm responsible to really deliver the goods for that. So I have a team, I have given a team to really deliver that. So you can't wait for a time of appraisal. It's a day job. It's a day job. Guys, this is not happening. So what are we going to do? Let's do it. Do we have some knowledge to get it done? Or like, do we need to get expert knowledge to really sort it out? So this is where that I think coaching cannot be really restricted to a appraisal time. And it's a way of life, Professor. Now, I firmly believe on that. So you have the judging and you have a appraising, right? If you go on that mode. But if you go on a mode of, no, we are a team that we need to deliver these objectives, there's no judging. And you don't have time to judge. You got to deliver on that. Now, classic example is on during this the COVID period. So had we wait who is doing what and who is doing right and who is not doing it and what we should do, I mean, you're gone, right? So it's a way of life. Then and there you get together. And then, of course, the concept of coaching is there. Concept of coaching is there. What you rightly say, the concept of coaching is there. The culture has to be there. Leadership has to be really pursue on that. And then these things will move on. But if you restrict yourself, judgment, and really do the change, and then you will go on. And you'll becoming a writer, like a evaluator. And today is not, I mean, honestly, like Professor, like today now we are looking at it, appraisal less kind of environment. And you as a team, you are a task to really deliver that. And these are my key goals that I'm going to achieve as a team. And similarly, respective areas as well. That's what exactly Google is doing. All these appraisal format are moving out. It's becoming a total project-based organization. You deliver and you create your right competitive advantage for your customer, you will survive. If you don't create that, and you can be really good appraisal system inside, but as an organization, if you're not creating the right competitive advantage to the market, you're gone, right? Like PIM could have a nice set of lecturers, but if you can't create a competitive advantage for the consumers, like students or the professionals getting in here, you're gone. And so the coaching is a way of life, I believe.
Thank you, Dr. Samit. It reminds me the need to have on-the-spot feedback. So earlier we had employee of the year, employee of the quarter, employee of the month, and now it's employee of the moment. On-the-spot regular feedback is the only way. And as you rightly said, the Google and other companies, they talk about OKR, objectives and key results. So it is basically a very dynamic, agile, vibrant process. Thank you, Dr. Samita Pereira. So may I turn to Dr. Malraj Kirial. In fact, Hashini presented a beautiful paper about ABS. So immediately ABS took my mind to my car, auto brake system. And then I realized it's not auto brake system, it's access-based service. Access-based service. That's an emerging concept. In fact, I have read Airbnb, and their office does not have any assigned place for any employee, even the leader. They come and sit wherever is available in the open space, and they plug their computer to a power source and they get the internet connection and they work. Access-based services. I remember, I think one of the last actions I did as a director, I was interviewed by PIMARC for a live webinar. So it was in Rajagiriya. They have hired a shared space in Rajagiriya, and that entire area, they had a small pantry, so they made some coffee, and they had an area where they could put their camera. So they hired that for 2 hours. Access-based service. And that building is available for anyone to come and conduct their board meetings, conduct their brainstorming sessions, conduct their trainings. The entire building is available for outside. And then then the challenge that you raise, the psychological ownership for access-based services. Over to you, Dr. Malraj Kirial, for your veteran comments.
Thank you, Professor Ajanta. So I'm going to talk on Hashini Wickramasinghe's paper. So in summary, the access-based system or the ABS, which allows customer to gain access without gaining physical ownership of material goods. But the problem is when you talk about the material possession over the physical ownership, there's a little demand on the material possession, and that is what the people are struggling with, how to convince this concept on the psychological ownership. So her paper actually based on the theory of the psychological ownership, and you have identified 3 key variables on that theory. So in addition to that, you have included 2 variables, which is the psychological safety, and other one is the self-control. So your results have shown that those 3 variables plus those 2 that you have included are influential, and where the psychological variable which shows that there's a mediating result, and other one is having also relationship with the variable. So the thing is, she adds value to a new literature, and but I would like to discuss this topic more in a broad sense, because when you are talking about shifting from material to psychological ownership in Sri Lankan context, it's maybe that not easy. So in our society, the wealth accumulation in the form of houses, land and other property, as well as the material ownership is very common. because this is a tradition that has come from generations. And for example, land is considered as a much valued treasure. And provided that is properly and duly protected, and if there's any dispute, the people will go for litigation, and those cases will take even generations, 3 generations, you will agree with me, and a lot of costs. So the ownership of this material ownership in our culture, it's considered as a somewhat right and somewhat value. But in contrary, in the other developed countries, where when you talk about Europe and the North America, they pay very limited attention to this material ownership. So like temporary access goods as opposed to the actual transfer and ownership of possession is very common in those countries. So these have been developed in the areas of transportation, housing, clothing, tools, cars, handbags, and golf clubs, bicycles, and accommodation. So according to studies, factors such as convenience, cost savings, technological savvy, and trust in the system have contributed to this shift from this material ownership to psychological ownership. Even academic literature, Chen in 2009, and many authors have agreed to the statement, ownership is no longer ultimate expression of consumer desire. That answers your question that you raised earlier. So another thing I have noticed in our culture is resistant to change. Professor Ajanta, who's a HR guru, would agree with me. Even in the workplace, Sri Lankans are hesitant to change. Changing station, designation, subject areas are found to be extremely difficult. Sometimes even changing of the desk, like a minor thing, is difficult. So we have to ask, normally the mottos like I, my, me, mine, myself are, those concealed self mottos are very common. So we had to ask the question, are we a nation who would like to share? And also, do we like to give more than we possess? So therefore, these areas we need to think in our mindset when we are going into material to the psychological ownership. But this ABS has historically existed in not-for-profit and public spheres such as museums and libraries, rather than in the market, which are prevalent in Sri Lanka as well. So however, the rapid expansion of globalization and technological advancement, AB has been established in various areas in Sri Lanka in recent years. Some examples include shared transportation services in Uber, shared home or room in Airbnb, cyber cafes and BPO services, and even your area that you touch on, the workplace spaces. So to investigate the shift of ownership from material to psychological is necessary to understand these key elements such as culture, change, attitudes of our people are important, right? So I don't know, you have mentioned that you have pre-tested your dimensions, whether you have included those into your model. Then the PwC study estimate access-based consumption revenues rising from $15 billion globally in 2013 to over $335 billion in 2025. So this shows the importance of ABS. Therefore, as previously mentioned, the research topic is important, which needs further exploratory research. It is an important concept that, if implemented, can result in several economic benefits. Let us think about the transportation sector. Think about the time and cost spent city limits, city traffic limits, specifically in the morning and the evening. Due to the energy crisis, one minister has recently suggested to have shared transportation as a solution. So I think it should not be something temporary, but it should be a permanent thing. We must think about it. However, I'm not sure about the, now even the Uber has used this shared transportation system, but I don't know how far the efficacy of addressing the cultural concerns of the safety of the ladies have been addressed in this Uber shared transportation. So other sectors such as we can go into the areas such as the agriculture and industry, which are very potential areas for research on shared tools and machinery. But issues like corona pandemic will have a challenge on sharing those services. And let me talk something about your research paper. On the methodology, you have used a purposive sampling method, but I would rather recommend a purposive stratified sampling method. If you have used that, you would have got more reliable results in your sample. And also, I didn't see your profile of your sample because these shared office spaces are commonly used by the SME sector. So if you have used those profile information also would have been useful. So therefore, this is a very good research area, which I think the findings are important. We can, I think the PIM can take further research. And I hope that the Hashini's findings would be used by the policymakers and the practitioners in developing the ABS system in Sri Lanka. Then I would like to congratulate her in her future endeavors and let you at the PIMA as well to conduct further research on these areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Malraj, for those wonderful points. Let me ask you a question. Now, you are heading an organization which is into consulting. If you are given the choice to invest in your own head office building or to use shared services offered by someone, access-based services, do you go for it purely on cost basis?
I would go for that because I'm a SME sector, so I can't spend because a lot of money. So I think it's a concept that I would consider. But when you talk about this material ownership, which in our society, I think even you go to a bank and get a loan, you require the title, right? So that's the concepts that which are coming from our roots, the culture, the position of the material thing is important. So I don't know whether this study also was able to cover those aspects when you are developing our dimensions, because those are inherent into our cultural system, which is different because I go because of the cost factor.
Interesting. I think we have this possessiveness in us, where even if, say, with regard to a corporate institution, the car park, assigned parking slot for you, assigned room with your name tag. So these are all traditions. So are we willing to change for better? Are we willing to go through that change? As you rightly said, the resistance to change, RTC might be there. So I think this is where perhaps another dimension that came to my mind is the generational difference. Perhaps older generations like Gen X might prefer that comfort, where the new generation, Gen Z, might prefer to be a backpacker, having the laptop and all sort of stuff in your backpack, and your backpack is your office. You go and anywhere you can connect with your workplace, and that is your workplace. So I think that's a new trend with the technology. It's possible with the gig economy. It's possible. So these are emerging insights for future research, and also to relate that to the way we do things differently. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Kiriyala, once again. So may I now come to the sensitive issue, hitting the glass ceiling. These days in parliament, there's issue about female parliamentarians and male parliamentarians insulting them. I think I see a paradox, Ms. Jamil, in Sri Lanka. We produced the first women prime minister to the whole world, first female leader in a country to the whole world. But why are we having these glass ceilings? Why there's less representation in some professions? If you take the medical profession, ample female representation, no issues, no concerns. Every specialty in the medical field, there are males and females working in harmony. So why that is not the case in legal profession? I think Shehani made her case very clearly, and you being a female legal expert, and I think there's no other person more qualified than you in the audience to answer this question. So over to you, Mrs. Farsana Jamil, for your valued insights.
Thank you, Professor Dharmasiri, and to the PIM for this opportunity. I would like to congratulate Shehani to start with for having gone into this area. Would you like me to answer your question first, or is that the, yeah. So I find that this glass ceiling business, it is not confined to the legal profession alone. I do agree with Professor Dharmasiri that it appears that the medical profession has a larger number of women, and there does not seem to be as acute a problem because they seem to be in all the specialties. So I would like to start by saying, by quoting somebody that I admire a lot, a judge that I admire a lot, and that is Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who said, "Women need to be in all places where decisions are made." And I would like to connect that with the SDG goal that Shehani referred to about the fact that gender should be equally represented, not only because of the impact it will have on the rule of law and on this and the quality of decision making, because it brings obviously a different perspective into the decision, but also because that is how it should be to start with. There should be no reason to be excluded merely because you're of a different gender. But having said that, and having looked at the theoretical approach, this is a very theoretical theory-based paper, and trying to look at and perceive the real life example and trying to slot it into the theory that you're working with. If I understand this correctly, you have a theory that you have taken. The theory has a name, it has a label, and you're trying to take a real life situation and slot it into a theory. Now, I think if by going through the whole paper and your presentation, I get the feeling that you have acknowledged that your research has shown that in a variety of women in the legal profession. So the legal profession, everybody comes out with the same qualifications, but they pick different areas to work in. You can be a conveyancing lawyer writing deeds, or you can be a boardroom lawyer, company secretary, executing articles of association and memorandums of association, or you can be what they call the equivalent of a solicitor, doing the paperwork, or you can be up there right in the arena, being a barrister or a counsel and enjoying the parry and thrust of the courthouse and the adrenaline rush that comes from engaging in a legal argument. And so you say you looked at a spectrum of people, state counsel, so women in the state sector, women in the private sector, women in public corporations, and a variety of places. And I don't think it is sort of accurate to say that the glass ceiling is more prominent. Getting stuck at the glass ceiling is one only for the legal profession. but it is probably more acute in the legal profession or seen more in the legal profession. And I have a kind of a, not a theory, but I think my view on that is that the law is a jealous mistress. You can never be ready enough for the case on the other side. It is so subjective, both the presenter and the person who listens. You never can predict which line that you use or which final argument will clinch the case for you. So you never stop studying. I'm talking from personal experience. You never stop preparing. So if you have to do that, then there is no end to the amount of work that needs to go in for success. It's not like you're doing an operation, you know, it takes time, 20 minutes, 1 hour, 3 hours, and the matter ends there. And every day you do it in the same way. And you have to, your work is identical every day. So maybe in the medical profession, there's more repetition, and the repetitiousness of it gives you an advantage. But in the legal profession, every case is unique and every court is different. And every time you're up against something new. Having said that, at the end, your conclusion is, I heard two things in your paper, in your presentation. One was that due to the feminization, meaning the large numbers of women entering the legal profession, the term you used, due to the feminization of the profession, we have to do something about ensuring that these large numbers that come in remain in the profession. If not, the amount of money and effort used on training will go to waste. And the other is that there are certain traits that are expected that lawyers should have. And the majority of lawyers have been in the past men. And so women who get into that profession, who do not mimic or have those qualities, are necessarily to be pushed out or to be unsuccessful because they can't do it that way. Is that what you were trying to say? Right. And so there are two things there. One is how, if you take the second one, the second aspect, that there are these masculine traits which are expected, and if we women do not have them, then you cannot be successful. And so I saw in your paper points such as assertiveness and leadership and all of that those positive hard traits. Soft skills under the large category of soft skills, but seemingly hard traits to show assertiveness, aggression, and this presumption that one has to be aggressive or assertive in an aggressive manner in order to be successful. So that I think is one thing, but I don't think we need to be training ourselves to be like that. You need to be training the listener not to value such traits. I don't think the problem is not going to be solved by us trying to become something that we are not, or that we do not want to be as women. It is for the person who's listening and judging to change his or her mindset to believe that you don't have to have that X, Y, and Z trait in order to be successful. That's because we are using that as the benchmark, and if you don't get to that benchmark, then you're presumed to be unsuccessful or ineffective. But I think there's another bigger problem than that, even if we didn't have that. And that is that, and I think this affects a larger spectrum, that the job of caring is not as valued as the job of earning. And what I mean by that is this. Traditionally, the roles that have been assigned for men and women, not only here, in any part of the world, men and women, show that women are regarded as the natural carers and the natural nurturers. And that therefore, that job must be done, but the earner is somebody else, the male side of it. And therefore, the entire working world, the whole system, in whichever profession you are, seems to be structured and created for that type of a system. And so therefore, a woman-friendly workplace does not seem to be an important factor. Why? Because lots of women drop out and don't reach the glass ceiling, because the larger part of caring, whether you're a mother or a daughter or a sister, married or single, or whether you're looking after a parent or you're looking after a relative, all of that is something that women take to. And there is no workplace that gives you the flexibility to be able to do all of that. So you drop out. You drop out because of that. So there are two things. One is about what is it that is valued and treasured as a trait to be successful as a lawyer, and therefore continue in that way. And secondly, even if you did have those traits, you would yet be dropping out, not because the system doesn't want you as a person, but because you are engaged in other things. But there's also there's this presumption that if you are committed to your family or the person you have to care for, whether it is a disabled child or a parent, if they see you as committed to a family, to a caring role, there's a kind of a presumption that you're not so committed to your job. And if you are extremely committed to your job and you're successful in that, there sometimes is again a presumption that you're probably not so caring towards your family duties or your caring duties. So that is also another issue. So I think that would be something that I would like to leave with regard to paper.
Thank you, Mrs. Farsana Jamil. Very insightful explanation and a very authentic one, I would say. In fact, what you mentioned about the barrier, she summarized as the perceived gender ideology. Perceived gender ideology, where you have that ideal way of looking at the masculine way of conducting things, and whether you are fitting to that perceived role or not might be a question. But let me ask you a very practical question, Mrs. Jamil, with all due respect, because the whole idea is to make the findings practically relevant, practically applicable. Say you have a recruitment interview. So you want to select a junior lawyer for your matters in your department. So you have got the shortlisted two final candidates, equally good, equally qualified, equally competent in many aspects. So one is a gent, one is a lady. So how would you look at it? Objectively, unbiasedly, to whom would you go if all other factors are same?
I will go only by competence, and I will ensure that if competence is the criteria and merit is the criteria, that should be the continued criteria, and we should provide the background to ensure that whoever comes in can do their job in a fair manner. Because you can be a male candidate and you can be having a whole host of commitments which that particular female candidate may not have. So it would yet be merit in my assessment.
So you will be objective, being a meritocracy as the front.
Yes.
Okay.
Because that means there are no presumptions about how you are going to perform. But having said that, let me put this rider in there. As women, if you are a female candidate, there's one thing that we can't deny, and that biologically, if you opt for a family, the biological window, the childbearing window coincides almost directly with that part of that time in your career in which you have to show your commitment. And so therefore, that that problem, or I won't, whatever label you call it, that criteria is there. But I would want,
Complexity.
it's a complex, yeah, it's a complexity. And so you may opt never to have children, but if you do, the biological window for that almost dovetails and is almost the same as that period of time when you need to be showing your employer that you're extremely committed.
Which has implications to the work commitment.
Work commitment. It can't, because in terms of time, you will be out of the picture for a while. So while you are at home doing the job of carer, your male colleague is there. If you both joined on the same day, your male colleague is there in the office showing his commitment, so to speak, because he doesn't have that physical demand to deal with.
Because
But,
someone is there at home taking care of the
Yeah,
children.
yeah.
There's someone who helps.
Yes,
So
and
this is a
also,
societal issue.
that's right. And I think Shehani also mentioned about this balance. So this work-life balance, because this, you rarely get a man being asked, how do you manage to balance your family and your life? You rarely get that, because the wife and the family is doing everything for them at home. But we women always get asked that question. So I think you have to change the mindsets of the men around us. I think that is what it is.
I think that's very well said, very well stated. Thank you, Mrs. Farzana Jamil. And I know our expert was patiently waiting and observing Mr. Asanga Ranasinghe, coming from local and multinational experience. So, Mr. Ranasinghe, have you heard from three diverse personalities reflecting on three separate research areas? So how would you synthesize the whole takeaways to business community at large?
So, Prof, thank you very much. It's a sort of a very difficult task given at the end. So my brief is purely to talk about the application of your findings to the industry. So with your permission, Shehani, I'll start from you. The gender diversity, I come from an organization, having worked there with you also for a long period of time, which had a stated objective of having a certain percentage at different management levels of having women in various positions. I must first of all tell you, as you were quite rightly outlining, getting women into the organization at lower level, to first level management or to middle level management, once you have stated that objective, once you have the culture that enables women to work, it is a easier task. So women joined. So for example, I worked in Pakistan, in Unilever Pakistan. You would think that Pakistan is a very male dominant society. But if you look at Unilever Pakistan, there are more women at the entry level than men, especially in marketing, in some of the other fields, advertising and so on. There are more women than men. As you quite rightly said, Shehani, there is the academic system sort of enables women to prepare them to join the industry. So entry level and maybe a level up is not the issue. Issue is when you go up into senior management, when you go up to real top level leadership, and certainly at boardroom level, that is where it starts. It starts due to various reasons. It starts, as you quite rightly said, Shehani, women themselves not being able to cope up with the I wouldn't say pressure, the demands of life, both from the family front as well as from the organizational front. The organizations have not enabled women to work at leadership positions. For example, the ways of working, the infrastructure. Now, for example, a simple thing like having a creche in an office is not easy. We can always, I was part of a team that started a creche in Unilever Pakistan, but that had all sorts of issues. It's not easy. So I think the business case is very clear. Having more women in leadership, the business case is very clear. Having said that, organizations have also committed to do that, especially multinational organizations or blue chip companies have made the commitment to bring gender diversity into their management or leadership positions, but doing it is not easy. It's very difficult. First, the leadership has to change. Ways of working has to change. The infrastructure has to change. The culture has to change. Women themselves have to change. The example you took, at a particular time, a man and a woman would join. It happens that the woman has to go on maternity leave. When she comes back, the man is 2 steps up. She sometimes will have to report to him. These are simple issues, but create a lot of problems. I have had a lot of situations in my team, in marketing, where the lady would come back from maternity leave, and the only position that is available for her to come into the team is to be a subordinate of that, the same person with whom she joined. She refuses to come. Then she leaves. So there are lots of issues like that. But the business case, Professor, is very clear. Having more women, businesses benefit. It's proven. And organizations say if the business case is positive, why don't you have more women? But it's very difficult. It's very difficult. Then the first point is about coaching and mentoring. Now this again is one, I have worked for one of the organizations that you have interviewed people from, again Unilever. From the face value, should we move from performance appraisal to performance management to performance development? Should we bring in coaching and mentoring into the organization? Everybody will raise hands and say, yes, we must do it. Certainly, we must do it. Coaching is very good. Mentoring is even better. But doing it is very difficult. When you do it right, performance development planning, your employee engagement scores go up. And I have seen that. Even companies like Unilever has tried to do it at all levels in the organization, move from performance appraisals to performance development. This whole judge to real mentoring to coaching, looking at the rear view mirror versus looking at the front. I have seen this. Unilever tried to do it at all levels, but couldn't really succeed, especially in some environments where the workforce is unionized, your staff is unionized. In such situations, coaching and mentoring becomes very difficult, Samita. But when you try to do it at high level, especially at levels like identifying what they call high potential people, key people in key jobs. That's one of the goals in main companies or big companies, to have key people who have the potential to really rise up, to have them in key jobs. In such situations, when you do coaching and mentoring, it really works. It adds a lot of value. And on top of that, to coach and to mentor, you need to invest on the leadership. So companies like Unilever spend a lot of time, lot of money in preparing the future leaders who are able to coach and mentor people. Because if you give the coaching job to somebody outside, then that's not taken seriously. And that's not aligned with the organizational objectives. So again, Vindhya, the case is very clear. But can it be applied to all levels of the organization? My answer is, I have had experience of not being able to apply and implement it at every level. At the same time, can you implement in all types of organizations? I have worked in multinationals and I have worked in local companies. Local companies sometimes struggle because the caliber of leadership who has to do this coaching, who has to do this mentoring, needs to be uplifted. And for that, there's a lot of investment that has to be put in. If you talk to HR leader in multinational companies like Unilever or Nestle or P&G, they would tell you how much money, how much effort has been put into developing leaders. And one big area in the development of a leader is to develop his coaching skills, mentoring skills, so that he is able to do it in a consistent way. And also it is consistent from one leader to the other. It is not about that functional goal. It is not about the goals of today, tomorrow. It's about the organization. So for example, I joined Unilever as a management trainee in a factory. And when I left Unilever, I was heading marketing. So people move from one function to the other. In the coaching or the performance development planning cycle, this has to be taken into account. The career advancements, the succession planning, and so on. Whether the leaders are able to do that kind of coaching, that's very difficult to develop. So it's a fantastic idea again. It's a fantastic idea. All hands will go up. Should we move from performance appraisal to coaching and mentoring? It's again, the business case is very clear. But to execute that, to implement that, it's a challenge. Implementing that in big companies, like especially in multinationals or blue chip companies you have studied, it succeeds. But when you are to take it to medium-sized companies, owner-led companies, SMEs, it's not easy. So some more research, some more findings have to be, you have to embark on. I have realized that to get this embedded in the performance development planning cycle, there's a big role to develop the leaders who do the coaching, who do the mentoring. If you get this right, then of course, you can reap the benefits of it. But having said that, a journey of 1,000 miles start with one step. So you have to take this first step. And when you take the first step in the process you develop. In my 25 years at Unilever got it wrong in the first place, had a lot of union issues. Unions went on strike in some countries when you moved away from target setting to performance development planning, not only at the workforce level, even at the staff level. So it has to be done by enrolling people, but the results are very clear. When you get it right, employee engagement scores go up. If you ask middle-level managers or even higher-level managers, what is the main reason for you to leave? They complain about the whole evaluation process. And Prof, you're right. At MBA level, if you ask them, they're not happy with the evaluation. So we have to move into performance development planning, making coaching and mentoring a big thrust. But to move, there's a big agenda in the organization that needs to be taken on. The third point, Malraj, what you commented about on Hasini's paper, this is, of course, a hot topic these days. Hot desking, having workspaces. You don't have to own a workspace to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to have your own office, the big corporate building to be an entrepreneur. Very clear. But is it only limited to SMEs? Is it only limited to some type of businesses? Can a typical fast-moving consumer goods company sell its corporate office and move to this kind of workspaces? It's not easy. It's not easy. Because these companies have to compete. In competition, one big part is to get the right people. Think about a company who works in a workspace like this versus having a big corporate office. Will you be able to attract the best talent? I'm talking about typical home and personal care or a food business. So industry, the type of industry still has a big role. But having said that, I again have experience in big companies like Unilever again. Within their own offices, they have moved away from these rooms and my own space and so on. Hot desking is something that is really being cultivated in such companies. Open offices, hot desking has really made some kind of a progress in this direction. But certainly, it is something that we must embark on. Awareness has to be built. Relevance has to be built. More than that, conviction has to be built. For you to be an entrepreneur, you don't have to have a big office. You don't have to have a big building space of your own for you to get into business. That really takes away a big entry barrier for entrepreneurs. It's a very good idea, but again, whether it's applicable to all types of industries is a question that needs to be probed more on.
Thank you, Mr. Asangaran Singh, for those wonderful insights, bringing your overall well-rounded expertise to the scene. So let me ask you one further question. Now, you are the MBA coordinator at PIM. Now, these are solid MBA products, and we promote, don't do an MBA, but be brilliant as a PIM MBA. How do you look at the future of research in MBA, a typical MBA? Some have got rid of it, the short-term, so-called fly-by-night MBA. How do you see the future of such relevant research embedded into a good MBA curriculum?
Prof, I think there are two things that are very important. The MBAs that have got rid of the research component, I think good luck. Good luck to them, and good luck to the students who follow them. The orientation, the way your mind is oriented to think, you will never get if you don't have a research component in an MBA. It's extremely important. It's not important, it's essential. So I think PIM we should never, and I don't think we will ever do it. PIM should never have less focus on research. In fact, we must have more focus. We must encourage more of our students to do quality research, because the structured approach, the way of thinking, that will help in the years to come. You will probably go through a lot of pain while doing your research, but the long-term gain is huge. Having said that, we do a lot of research, lots and lots of research. All that is very good. But the industry, I come from industry, having worked in the industry for 30 years. Industry is crying for research findings that are applicable to business. How can the business, as you said, Samita, how can the business get results, quick results? How can the business get sustainable results? And if PIM, Dr. Kalum, if we are able to promote research where the findings give value to the industry, I think our collaboration with the industry will be even stronger. So in short, we need to have research, even more research, but we need to have more applicable research.
Thank you, Mr. Asangaran Singh. In fact, I know that we have exceeded the time, but to do justice to the valuable participants who have virtually and physically connected, Dr. Nilakshi, are there any questions? We can entertain one question symbolically to recognize their contribution.
Yeah. Professor, there is one question from Dr. Ravi Baman Singh. He was asking about how practical is remote coaching in today's context, where appraising is also difficult. Further, does the appraiser has formal time to coach? That is the question.
Okay, so the time pressure and the remoteness. So may I open it up? Perhaps Dr. Samita, you could take it, and then others also can. So I know this is a very, very practical, typical issue.
See, it's tough for us to really create an environment to reward the, I like to get coach, you know, I'm willing to coach. So it's tough for us to practically create a reward forum for those elements. I think it's right. Ravi is right. He's talking about it. It's really tough for you to do that kind of a stuff, right? So instead, what we can do is, I mean, there's a competency that you're lacking. Therefore, that you need to get this thing done, or you need to really overcome that for you to make it. So there's an option in the business that you coaching as a solution for you. Yeah, I'll give a typical example. Like way back in, this is 20 years back, when these emails and stuff like that got into the business. I was at Singer HR. So organization decided to look here, we will move into sort of, rather than you putting memos, let's go on to a level of using our Gmails. Yeah, they have provided, didn't have any networks at that time, internal, like all Gmails, try to get out there. So we had people who are really IT savvy, youngsters those time, we was 25 years back, youngsters, so-called. And we had some really neck into IT. So it became a culture that we need to learn each other and support each other and overcome this issue. Or like demand that the organization putting on us, got to go on to the mails, don't go on the memos, right? Those days when Hema Kamara was there, I said, no, stop all these memos going on. Let's go for the mail culture. Yeah, so it happens there. So it's a reward, is a need that you're creating, a burning platform that you create in the business for us to really use platform that is coaching. And if you try to go on a coaching as a concept and try to implement it, as Asanka was talking about, it may fail. And it really failed. Like, today we are looking at it a senior operator, a machine operator to train your junior operator. This is a coaching. When a newcomer comes, we will get the head boss really support the other guy. So this coaching is happening. The concept is happening there.
So it is basically, Dr. Samita Pera, it's the need-based.
It's need and the burning need.
So you have to adjust to the requirement and you have to change.
And then if you try to inbuild it, it's going to be problems. You need to create a burning platform all these things will happen when you try to create a burning platform and work on that. So how banking industry guys have been changing for more IT survey than the documentation of huge ledgers. So it's a need that you can do. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Samita Pera. Any other comments from anyone else?
I think Dr. Ravi Babanu Singh's question is very valid. We will have to find a way. Just that if you have the will, we'll find a way. If you say that, if you don't have a face-to-face interaction, you can't do coaching, you won't find a way. So we have to have the will.
Technology could be
used there. As you go on, just that the will to do coaching has to be there. That's what he's trying to say.
Thank you. Can we take one more question to do justice? Any other questions?
There are no any other questions.
Thank you,
But
Dr.
may I
Kalika. Then
ask-
may I ask all the panelists just to give one sentence?
She wants to ask a question.
Sorry, please, Dr. Max.
May I ask a question from Mrs. Varshana Jamil?
Yes, please.
This is a question I think related to ladies. Now, by listening to Shahani's presentation, I feel that you are a correct person to answer this question. So looking at yourself, how do you feel about yourself, whether you have masculine characteristics or feminine characteristics go up into the ladder? And how did you tackle your balance, authenticity, and the other part is the challenge of your life?
I think that needs a separate meeting between you and me.
Thank you. Thank you.
However, the one liner to that is that I have never sat and consciously classified traits. I have only concentrated on the matter that I needed to give my mind to, and then presented that. It has not been about classifying traits, but the big story I'll tell you alone.
Thank you, Mrs. Jamil, for telling a long story in a brief manner. Okay, so may I now go around one quick response from each panelist. Thank you very much for your valued thought sharing. One sentence advice to the emerging researchers, because you all come from the valuable industry background. So what would you expect from the emerging researchers in one sentence? Shall we start from Dr. Malraj Kiriel?
I think a lot of research has been doing from many institutions, including PIM, that you need to get the practical element over here. What are the topics which should be useful for the both corporate as well as the public sectors? Before doing research, it's important, and then you either sign up with them and then use those findings for their growth of their industry or some in future. I think that that should be there, because most of the research are going into the shelf.
So the keyword is being practical.
Yeah, practical.
Thanks. Over to you, Dr. Samita Pereira.
I think make it relevant in current context.
So our research should be relevant to the current context. Thank you. Over to you, Mrs. Farzana Jamil.
I would like to make a specific comment with regard to Shehani's research. I didn't go into the other two in detail.
Overall,
Overall, I think the research must be tied up with what is really taking place in reality, and not just, I mean, I know the research is from people to whom you have given a questionnaire, but the answers will depend on how the questions were raised. So you could probably rehash your questions. If you have an end in mind, then redo your questions to achieve that answer, to find a answer to that question.
I think, Ms. Jamil, you really hit the nail, because our theme for the conference is reflecting reality through research. So you need to reflect the reality through research. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last but no way the least, Mr. Asangar Ranasinghe, your final thoughts.
So I think my only humble request to our learning partners is that don't let your research report be a book report that go into a cupboard. Make sure that your report, your findings get implemented. I'm sure the industry is waiting for findings that will create value for the industry. They are waiting. We have to understand, as Malraj said, understanding the needs and deliver. Don't make your report go into a cupboard.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mrs. Farzana Jamil, Dr. Samita Pereira, Dr. Malraj Kiriel, and my colleague at PIM, Mr. Asangar Ranasinghe. So I personally enjoyed, and I hope we did the justice to the allotted time. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Tarindu Amarasek.
Thank you very much, Professor Ajanta Dharmasiri, and our esteemed panelists who are here today, who shared their valuable times, their valuable thoughts, and spent their valuable time with us this evening and made this event truly colorful and a success. I would now like to invite the Director of PIM, Dr. Sena Kalumgamage, to hand over plaques and certificates of presentation to the presenters and our panel members. Dr. Sena Kalumgamage, if we can have your presence here, sir. I would also like to invite the following presenters to come forward. Ms. V.M. Gunasekara, Ms. Hashini Vikramasinghe, Ms. W.R.M. Shehani Shanika. May we now have the following panelists coming forward to accept these plaques of appreciation for the valuable time that they have spent with us, sharing their insights. May we have Mrs. Farzana Jamil, Dr. Malraj Kiriel, Dr. Samantha Pereira, Mr. Asangar Ranasinghe, And our vibrant moderator for this evening, Professor Ajanta Dharmasiri. Ladies and gentlemen, what an insightful evening it has been. Thank you very much, Dr. Sena Kalumgamage, for your presence as well. To deliver the concluding remarks and the vote of thanks, it is my profound honor to invite a special individual, someone who is extremely passionate about research herself. She is none other than Dr. Sakuntala Dureratnam. Dr. Sakuntala Dureratnam has over 24 years of industry experience in quality management, with over 8 years of experience in teaching and research at the Postgraduate Institute of Management. She is a senior management consultant and she has obtained her PhD from the Management and Science University of Malaysia. May we please have Dr. Sakuntala Dureratnam.
Thank you, Tarindu. Basic research has proven time and again to be the lifeline of practical advances. Yet on the other hand, any research is only as good as its practical applicability. Distinguished members of the panel, presenters, and audience inside and online. We have reached the concluding stage of the industry dialogue segment of PIMARC 2021. And what a grand, productive, inspiring session it has been. We had 3 excellent presentations by Vindhya, Hasini, and Shanika. Hats off to you all, excellent presentations. And there's no need to exaggerate or explain that you all were so proud of your own work. It reflected in the way you all very confidently presented very proudly your work. Let me only tell you that we are also very proud of you to call you all PIM products, and our best wishes for all success in your future endeavors, professional as well as personal. Thank you to you 3. Our expert panel, you have spent a lot of your valuable time here with us, not just participating, but giving us very deep, insightful feedback with which PIM students can take their research activities further on. All of you unanimously endorsed the applicability and the high standards and quality of the papers that were presented. And also you all gave additional inputs that apart from what they presented, tangible punch may be given to the industry so that they buy in your recommendations. Maybe we should take more concern on that. Also, it was highlighted that even though the bigger organizations and multinationals easily adopt these findings, the recommendations that you all are suggesting, it may not be that easy for smaller scale organizations, and there may be challenges which need to be considered. It came out very strongly during the panel discussion that the Sri Lankan context, being unique in its culture, may pose difficulties, challenges to meet with the recommendations you all have given about ownership, to own or not to own, that's the question, where resistance to change, people's attitudes, cultures, all this is coming in. And it was advocated that awareness, convictions of needs need to be built. And it was told that in the current context, many organizations are already adopting these sharing facilities, but for others to get into this, more awareness and things like that, conviction has to be conveyed. That was a Very useful suggestion. Glass ceiling. Very interesting for all the ladies. The researcher mainly concentrated on the role the women have to play. In fact, that the change has to emanate from the women themselves to adopt masculine traits, but a very strong advice came from the panel that it's not the woman per se, it is the men who have to be educated and made aware of. I was thrilled, inspired. You hit the nail on the head, right? So the changes, the challenges for women may not emanate only from the women themselves, but as one of the panelists suggested, the organizations themselves will have to create a very friendly environment for women to work and thrive and progress. So back again, panelists, we are highly privileged to have had you all with us this evening. Your participation is not just important for this event, but actually to seal the entire industry academia collaboration initiatives. Thank you very much. Behind every successful organization, there's a great leader. The guiding force behind the PIM team, motivating us, giving us guidance and opportunity, and propelling us to conduct an event like this amidst the challenging new normal is our director, Dr. Senaka Kalumgamage. Thank you very much, sir, for encouraging us to conduct this event so successfully amongst the challenges of the current period. The event would not have been a success without the dedication and hard work of the entire PIM team. Each and every person in PIM contributed and worked very hard, including Mr. Ranapura, our Senior Assistant Registrar, and Mr. Maitri Ratna, our Deputy Bursa. Especially the organizing committee worked hard and enjoyed themselves in the process. We are a united and productive team. What event would be successful without its audience? Thank you very much to all of those whom are present in person and virtually. So until we see you again at PIMARC 2022 in a grander mode, good night and stay safe. Stay safe.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sakuntala Dureratnam, Management Consultant at PIM. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now arriving at the conclusion of what has been 2 fantastic days involving doctoral colloquiums, a national pitching research competition, MBA research sessions, and most importantly, this industry dialogue. Our only hope as the organizing committee and as PIM is that you will take this knowledge, take it to the world and create new strategies, new modus operandis, so that in this new normal, you will not just survive, but you will thrive. And PIM, no matter what part of the world you may be in, PIM, I'm sure, can look back, look at those successes and be proud that we too, as the nation's management mentor, has contributed in whatever way possible. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the national anthem.
Namo, namo.
Thank you and good night.